with Ohio University football. Excited to be part of the Glazier e-clinics, and I hope everyone enjoys my topic for this session, which is basically developing winning drills. And when I was young and coaching, this is definitely a topic that I wish that someone would have sat me down and gone over how to develop a drill. And unfortunately for me, this presentation kind of stemmed from another institution that I was at about 10 years ago. And we had a young man who was a great player and was a returning all-conference player, was doing a tackling drill. It was a running back carrying the ball, defender tackling him, kind of a base spring ball drill. And unfortunately, we had a walk-on linebacker that was trying to make a name for himself. He wanted to tackle the big-time running back that we had. So we do the drill. Everybody kind of at one point assumes that the drill stops. Unfortunately, the walk-on didn't know that the drill was over, continued, and unfortunately, we popped an ACL on our returning running back's knee, and he was out for the year. Well, of course, all of us meathead coaches, we yell at which guy? We yell at the walk-on linebacker. But afterwards, we had a staff meeting, and we said, you know what? It really wasn't his fault. And we sat down, and basically, we didn't tell the two players what finished the drill, what ended the drill. So at that time, as a staff, we kind of came up with essentially this presentation. And it is something that I am very pleased to do. And I think that it's something, whether you're a running back coach, D-line coach, strength coach, I think it's something that everybody can get some positive things out of. So the first thing here are a couple quotes. Number one, it never changes. Football is a game of repetition, mental and physical. You may try to articulate it in a little different way, but it's the same thing. Get better players, make fewer mistakes, and drill the fundamentals into your players' heads. Now, whether if you're at the college level, it's recruiting, going out and getting better players. And no question about that, but I also know at the high school level in a lot of ways, we're all recruiting, whether it's trying to get the kid that just moved into your district or the big 6'4" guy that's walking the hallways that's been playing basketball and you're trying to recruit him out to be your tight end. But we're all recruiting. Whether it's make fewer mistakes, being simple with what you do, that's another topic. But drill the fundamentals into your players' heads. And how are you doing that? How are you going about drilling your players and making sure that you get what you want out of your drills? The last thing is the secret to winning is constant, consistent management, which is, you know, I'm showing my age a little bit there with Tom Landry, but the great Cowboys coach said, and our job is to do everything that we can to get our team to be the best they can be, but it's also to make sure that we got our best players out there on Friday night or Saturday or whenever you're playing your game. And you've got to manage the situation. You've got to do a great job of making sure that the drill is safe and that you get as much out of it as you can that's going to help you on the playing field. But our job is to, when you're doing a drill, and we don't often think about it, is safety. And especially in this day and age with concussions and things like that, safety is for sure one of the things that you got to consider when you're putting together a drill. So there are a number of things that we're going to go through here in the next few minutes about what makes up a drill. The first thing is the name. And as it says, it needs to be something that our players can identify with very quickly. You don't want it to be too long. You don't want it to be too short. You want it to be something, though, that is concise and the players are able to hear the name of the drill and instantly know what they're trying to do in the drill, where they need to go, where they need to be, and the situation that you are trying to put them in. So the parting quotes here over is going to describe a drill that we do with the quarterbacks here at Ohio University. This one is read 1, 2, 3. So as soon as I say to the quarterbacks, hey, we're going to do our read 1, 2, 3 drill, they know exactly where to go, what we're trying to do with the drill, and that we are able to get in a position to where we can execute this drill with no wasted time. The next thing, and these next two are pretty close in what we're trying to get out of it, but number one is the outcome. And it's basically, what do you want the drill to produce in the game? So when you turn on the film on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and you've been working on, in this case, reads for the quarterback, doing this drill, did it get what you wanted out of it? Were the reads better in the game? Were the pass sets by the tackles better in the game? Was the ball security for the running backs better in the game? What was it that you want out of the drill as you see in the game, on the game film, on the field, being done? So the outcome of this particular drill is to execute throws to our second and third read in the game. So again, what are we going to see on the film? That's the outcome. The purpose of the drill is, what are we going to work on to make sure that happens? So what kind of drill are we going to work on with the quarterbacks in this case? What are we doing to help them get through their reads better? What ball security drill are we working on, trying to keep it high and tight? Are we working about swinging the ball when we're carrying it? What are we trying to exactly work on that's going to help, in this case, our reads in the game? So as it says, to practice having good footwork when going through our first read, to our second read, to our third read. So primarily working on footwork. Now, there may be another drill that we need to do that helps with the reads that are more with our eyes or more with defensive recognition. But this drill is, the purpose of this drill is for our feet to be better in practice, and then hopefully carry over into the game as we go through. So the next thing, what positions are involved? Now these drills for the most part deal with actually out on the practice field at this point. But who's involved? In this case, it's the quarterbacks. If you've got extra receivers, I may have some extra receivers. But for the most part, it is a quarterback drill. But hopefully you've got the name of a drill. A drill that we do is that involves tackling. It's called the Butkus drill. As soon as Coach Solich or any of the coaches say, hey, Butkus drill, everyone knows where to go, and everyone knows, okay, the O linemen and the D linemen are involved in the drill. The linebackers and the tight ends are involved, and the receivers and the DBs are involved. They all know where to go because it's a short, concise name to the drill. And everybody knows what positions are involved in the drill. So who's involved? The next thing, and I think that this is unbelievably important, and I think if you are hiring a coach, or you're looking for someone to be part of your program, or you're evaluating coaches on your staff, one of the number one ways to evaluate is how good are their drills? How disciplined are they? How concise are they on what they're trying to teach? Are they doing a good job of teaching? And how relevant to the game is the drill? And I think a common mistake a lot of people use is they don't start their drill on what starts a play in the game. They'll start the drill on a whistle. Well, at no time during a game does a play start on a whistle. It never happens. So why start a drill on a whistle? To me, that's an inexperienced mistake. It never happens. So now you're teaching your players to start a drill in a way that never happens with a whistle. So find another way. For almost every position, with the exception of O-line, it starts on movement. Whether you're a receiver looking in at the ball, whether you're a DB in man coverage looking at the receiver, whether you're a linebacker reading your keys, it starts on movement. So start your drills with movement. Whether it be you go out and you get the broom handle with the football tied on the end of it and you hike it that way, or you tie a string to a football and you move the football that way, or whether you just stick your foot out, all right, and everybody moves on your foot. There are a number of ways to do it. Some of them require some equipment, some of them don't. But utilize movement when guys are doing their drills. Now, if you just have the O-line, then you may want to use a cadence, because the tackles generally, unless you're in a really loud environment, are listening for a cadence, are listening for a set go. So those guys, it may work out that you may want them to go on some sort of sound, but don't use a whistle. The next thing, what finishes the drill? For obvious reasons, as I said earlier, it can be important for safety, okay? But what finishes the drill? Now, this is one that, as much as possible, should be a whistle, because that's what ends the plays in college football. And we've all said, hey, go to the echo of the whistle, finish through the whistle. Well, if you're doing drills that don't end on a whistle, they're not getting reps of that. You may have a drill like the one that I explained at the onset of the clinic, is there should have been a whistle or some sort of definitive end to the drill, and try not to make it, oh, hey, okay. Make it, is it through a line? Is it over a particular bag? Is it through a set of cones? What finishes the drill? And it's important that everybody in the drill understands what finishes the drill, so that you don't get a situation where one guy's continuing to go at full speed and another guy has kind of stopped. So again, what starts and what finishes the drill, I think, are very, very important, no matter what sort of drills, whether they're conditioning drills, out-of-season drills, anything like that. All right. Now, the next thing that you need to have is, what equipment needs do you have? Fortunately, here at Ohio University, we've got an unbelievable equipment staff, right, that they prepare the drills that we have coming up in practice. So I'll try and give our guys my drill notebook and say, hey, if we're doing read 1, 2, 3, okay, I'm going to need footballs and then 30 yards on the field. Okay, so if you're the head coach and you've got your list of what everybody's doing in a particular practice, and you look, hey, the quarterback coach is over doing read 1, 2, 3 drill, that takes up 30 yards on the field. And the receiver coach is going to do a deep ball drill at that same time. That requires 50 yards of the field. Well, we don't have enough field for everybody, so then you as the head coach or the offensive coordinator can look and say, hey, we can't do these 2 drills at the same time. We don't have enough field space. So you get back to that Tom Landry quote, our job is to manage the situation. And that would be a time where you just may not have enough field space. But so what equipment needs do you have, and be as descriptive as possible. Don't leave out, hey, sometimes you need the fire hose to simulate the offensive line. Put that on there if that's something that you need. All right, and then obviously you can tell this is a pretty in-depth, but describe the drill. This notebook that I put together is something that I will give our quarterbacks. We've got an incoming freshman quarterback. I will get this to him. And as I do this, I try and think, if he has no idea how to do the drill, if I do a good job describing it, he should at least have a chance of coming in and understanding what he is supposed to do. So, like I said, include as much information, but don't forget, it's very easy to forget where you're supposed to be situated. Where am I able to put myself in position to be able to, number one, see the drill, get out of it what I need, but also put myself in position where maybe I can see people not in the drill, so that I don't get that snot-nosed freshman that's screwing around in the background, or he's bent over, and we'll talk about body language later. But put yourself in a position, number one, where you can get the most out of evaluating the drill, but also that you can see some other things, whether or not you're getting into another coach's drill and being safe there, whether or not the drill's able to finish out where it needs to finish out. So be as descriptive as you can. I'm not going to read through all that, but that is a go through and make sure that it's something that anybody on your staff, the equipment managers, or someone that's never done the drill has a chance of knowing what to do. All right, now I'll have different categories of drills. You may have some drills that you do every day. We all have them. Your dailies, whatever you may call them. So they're drills that you're going to do every day. So label them that way. You may have drills that you do, hey, once a week, every Tuesday during the season, we are going to do this particular ball security drill, the first period individual. Everybody knows it. It's a once a week thing. You may have a drill that is, hey, for your receivers, this is a good drill to get off press coverage. And you haven't played anybody that's played press coverage in 2 or 3 weeks. Well, then you're going to pull this drill out. So this may be a once a month, 2 times a year, once during camp type drill. So is it an everyday drill, a 1 time a week, or a 1 time a month drill? And then label them that way. The next thing, what am I trying to get out of the drill? Am I trying to teach a particular technique? Am I trying to teach the quarterback's first step, dropping and dropping back? Am I trying to teach the hand movement of a receiver getting off press coverage? Is it something I'm just trying? It may not be a really fast-paced drill, but I'm trying to teach people what to do. Is it a drill that is? It's a very high rep drill. I'm trying to get as many throws as I can. I'm trying to get defeat as many cut blocks as a linebacker that I can. What am I trying to get as many reps out of the drill? Is it a drill that's a competitive drill? Is it a drill where it's one-on-one versus the receivers versus the DBs, or pass rush with the D line and the O line? What is it that who am I trying to get better? Am I trying to use competition in some fashion? Or is it a group drill, or really a team drill? Is it 7-on-7? Is it inside run? All right, where there might be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys going at one time. And again, label it that way. The next thing, and this may be as important, again, based on the example I started out with, is what is the tempo of the drill? All right? We try not to have what we call walkthroughs, because that it kind of says, hey, we're kind of being a little lazy around here. So we have run-throughs. So guys are jogging through the play. And so it's not a live rep. It's not a full-speed rep. It is simply a rep where we are just trying to get people into the right places and run through. The next thing is it a full-speed drill? Is it a drill with the quarterbacks where, hey, I want them to drop back at full speed, at game speed, throwing on the run. Hey, I want, this, hey, we're kind of running through this one, throwing on the run, working on getting your front shoulder at the target. So, hey, this is at 80%. All right? Now the next time through, hey, I want this at 100%. This is full speed. But so that everybody is on the same page. Is it a tag-off drill? So now we're kind of getting into those group or team situations where we are tagging off. and the way that we teach tagging off here from a defensive standpoint is as the running back or the ball carrier is moving towards you, all right, or in any fashion that we want the defenders to tag off, okay, to bend their knees, get in a good football position, and tag off usually around the butt. There should be no ripping at the ball. There should be nobody getting hit. There should be no collisions downfield with the ball carrier. It is a tag-off situation. The running back's job is to avoid any major collisions, but it's also the defense's job to avoid getting in a position where the running back is going to have to run over him. And that's a tag-off situation. The next is thud with no cutting. So for us, thud is, once again, the ball carrier has the ball, and if I am head up on the ball carrier, so as the ball carrier is heading down the field, and I'm a defender and I am head up on the ball carrier, that I can get in a good tackling position, make a good thud tackle, okay, shoot your arms, shoot your hips, stop the ball carrier, and then let him go. All right, if I am coming in at an angle at all, any sort of angle, it is a tag off. So again, all the things that we just talked about, bending our knees, getting in a good football position, and tagging off at below the waist. Everything else, whether it's the O-line or the perimeter blocking, you need to make sure, hey, this is game speed. Okay, this is game speed. Everyone else is full go. All right, then we have thud with cutting. A number of years ago, we were getting ready to play Navy. And those wing T guys, they're chopping all over the place. So we couldn't just do thud tempo and expect our defense to go out and be able to defeat cut blocks. So we said, hey, it's with thud, but now we're allowed to cut. We're going to cut our own guys that week in practice, and we actually called it chud. So that was chud tempo. When we said chud tempo, that meant it was thud up on the ball carrier. Everyone else is going full speed, but now we are going to cut. So now the D-line knows that, hey, they got to protect themselves. And again, getting back to safety. So that is chud tempo. Another is, okay, hey, tackle. Everybody's live, but the quarterback is not. So that would be a tackle. We're tackling everybody that catches the ball, but the quarterback is not live. I'm sure most places like here, we put the quarterback in a different color jersey just to reinforce that, to make sure that he doesn't get hit. But everybody else is live. Now, here we want athletic quarterbacks, so we will at times go, so when the quarterback is not live, we put him in a different jersey. When the quarterback is live, we try and make sure that we do a good job of putting the quarterback in the same jersey that the rest of the offense is in. I've been a part of scrimmages in the spring where the quarterback keeps his red jersey on or his black jersey on or his dirt jersey that's a different color. All right, and we say, hey, he's live. And the quarterback runs down the field, nobody tackles him. And because they're so used to seeing that red jersey means, hey, hands off. So if you are going to go quarterback live, do your best to put him in a jersey that is the same as everyone else on the offense. And then you may have some other tempo. But whenever you're going to do a drill, again, these are a little bit more towards the group, the inside run, 7-on-7, or the teams, before you run that drill, someone needs to communicate to both the offense and the defense what the tempo is so that you don't get someone not expecting to get cut, and he gets cut and he didn't know. All right, the next thing, diagram the drill. All right, and again, these are things that you put in your drill notebook. And take notice of where you may be as a coach. All right, and put the coach in there. And this, I'll show you, we've got two coaches here, two players that are going to play defense. If I've got other guys that can do that, then I will try and put myself in that situation. So this is, again, the read 1, 2, 3 drill and diagram. All right, so that's the drill notebook. And I think as many drills as you have, go through them, go through all those steps, the name, the purpose, the outcome, all right? describe them. What equipment do you need? What players do you need? What starts it? What stops the drill? All right, then have a drill chart. Okay, what have I done? And this can be in the off season as well. This sprint technique we have not covered yet. And then have a checklist so that you can go through it. Make sure, hey, you know what, I haven't done this particular drill in a while, and it's a really good one. I think it'll help us on Saturdays or Friday nights, and it utilizes a drill maybe you haven't done. All right, another great quote that I've heard a number of times in coaching is, what you see on film is either taught or tolerated. And I'm a huge believer in that. If your guys are not executing a particular technique on the field on game day, it's your job as the position coach to make sure that you drill it and rep it and get it to be the best that it can be, so that you don't have mistakes on film. Have a progression. All right, keep it simple early. Psychologically, you can only if you are fully rested, fully healthy, fully aware, have eaten a good breakfast, eaten a good lunch, and you're ready to go, your brain can only handle at the most 7 different variables. All right, at the most. Most of the time it's going to be 4 or 5. So if you start off with a drill where they're having to think about 5, 6 different things, they're not going to be able to execute it. An example of that for me is the quarterback coach. The first time we work moving in the pocket, I'm pointing them which way to go, because they can't take any other stimulus. I want them, hey, you're going to step this way, or hey, you're going to step that way. They can't think of a lot of different things. Moving their back foot, keeping the ball high, keeping your shoulders parallel to the line of scrimmage, all those things. They can't think about all that and have to read a defender. Then later, we'll have defenders rush the quarterback. Now, hopefully, that you've done enough drill work to get them to understand their footwork and their shoulders and where their eyes need to be, that now it's not something they have to think about. So have a progression in how you're teaching the drill. You may be teaching coming out of the blocks in a 40 or running. Well, they can only think about so many things. All right, arm move. Hey, right now, all we're worried about is our arm movement, or keeping our elbow locked, or those type of things, hammering back. And the 2 people that I always talk about with this is, number 1, Chuck Noll, the legendary head coach for the Steelers, one of those football life shows on the NFL Network, and Mean Joe Green, Hall of Famer, first ballot, steel curtain, one of the best defensive linemen ever. After they had won 2, 3, or 4 Super Bowls, the very first practice, Chuck Noll made Mean Joe Green get in a stance. That was the first thing he coached. And, you know, of course, Mean Joe Green's going, you got to be kidding me. But everybody, no matter whether you were Terry Bradshaw or Lynn Swan, whoever you were going to be, the first thing that they taught in camp was stance. And then it went on from there. So he obviously had a progression. And then John Wooden famously talked about the very first meeting with his players of how do you put your socks on and how do you tie your shoes. And his thought was, hey, if you get a blister in practice and you can't perform at a high level, he considered his job as the head coach to make sure that you understood how to put shoes on right. So he would take Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and at that time Lou Alcindor and all these Bill Walton and teach these guys how to put their socks and shoes on. So there's no spot that you think is too remedial for you to start with your guys, but have a progression. Next thing, as I said, notice where you are in position of the drill. Kind of talked about that already. See it all if possible. Be aware of where the players are that aren't in the drill. And then important, just as important, be aware of where other drills are. All right. Now, so that was a little bit more towards football type stuff. Okay? Now into kind of the off-season type things. The things where you're trying to develop things in your team, whether it's leadership, or we'll kind of move on from there. But you want to make them as competitive as you can be. I'm sure a lot of you out there have listened to Pete Carroll or read his book, and he is huge on competition. And the theory behind it is, as I understand it, is, hey, my players are going to work a lot harder at running a pro shuttle if they know there's going to be a winner or a loser. And if it's a 10-yard, 20-yard sprint, if there's a winner or a loser, they're going to run through the line. They're going to finish the way that you want them to finish. Because hopefully as many players on your team as possible are competitive. They don't like to lose. So this is a great quote. Every drill is about competing. Coach is trying to teach those who don't know how to compete to compete. He lets us know that it's not all right to lose at anything in any drill around here or around this place. And that is a quote from Christian Leitner talking about Mike Krzyzewski, who you could argue is if not the best, one of the best team coaches of any sport of all time. And he's done it with NBA guys, college guys, build a program. But Christian Leitner, one of his best players, said, "Hey, it's all about competing." And if you see an interview with Mike Krzyzewski, he kind of comes across as a mild-mannered guy. But if you learn anything about him, he's a really, really tough dude in practice, and it is all about competing. So when you're developing drills that are about competition, again, a little bit more towards the off-season type stuff, I still think that you should have a name, an outcome, a purpose, what starts it, what finishes it. Do you need agility bags? Do you need, how many cones do you need? What part of the field do you need, which I think very much gets overlooked. And then describe it. And then what do you want to get out of it? Hey, this is purely a toughness drill. Hopefully, if your off-season deal is formulating toughness, conditioning is certainly going to be part of it. Team building, leadership development, accountability, body language is an enormous part of this time of the year. The team that's been over, all right, midway through the third quarter usually is the team that's losing or is going to lose. So when do you coach that? When do you teach that? It's got to be in the off season. It's got to be in February and March and April and in the summer, because once you get into the season, you don't want to have to mess with it. So coaching body language is very important at this time of the year. Athletic development, obviously agility, strength, explosion, quickness, speed, all that kind of stuff you can get out of these drills, but making them competitive. If you have a drill where people are jumping over a bag, all right, and you're trying to get them to do that as quickly as they can, do it for 10 seconds and have somebody count. Okay, bang, 10 seconds are up. Hey, he got 9, he got 8, he got 11. Wow, hey, Billy's the winner. Okay, and those guys are going to be working harder because it's competitive, not just because they believe that you want them to work hard. Make it a competition. All right. One thing that I think is a great way to foster all of that is to have a team draft. All right, and you can do it a couple different ways. You can have your seniors do it. If you've got, and then depending on how many players you have on your team, maybe you have 8 seniors. Or if you have 16 seniors, maybe you have 2 on 8 teams. And divide, and then have a draft. All right? You can have a draft in a room, like a fantasy league draft. And I think that's the safe way to do it with your team. But I also think one of the best ways to do it is to put your team in your team room, wherever they can all be, and do the draft at that time. So if I'm in this is part of our team meeting room, I call up Johnny. I want Johnny. He comes up and he's with my team. And what happens is, as everybody goes, all of a sudden, there's going to be 5 or 6 guys that are still sitting there. And they're going to wonder, why aren't I getting drafted? Why aren't I getting up there? Well, it's because we tie everything in our program to these teams. If someone's not accountable, if someone doesn't go to class, if someone's late for a workout, they cost their team points. So I'm not going to draft. He may be a phenomenal athlete and a great player, But if he doesn't show up to workouts on time, or he doesn't do what he needs to do, he's probably going to be sitting in his seat pretty late into the draft. We had a young man in another school that I was at that actually played a lot, actually as a running back, was a returner, really good player. But he was the last player picked in the draft that offseason, and you could tell as we were going through the draft, you could tell it was written all over his face like, you got to be kidding me. I am way better than that guy. Why is he getting drafted? And it started to dawn on him that, hey, you know what? I think I'm starting to figure out, because I can't be held accountable. I'm not going to do what I need to do. And interestingly enough, the young man ended up kind of turning over a new leaf and was a much more accountable person after that. So you can do the draft in a number of different ways. And then we'll have teams. So if it's Team A versus Team B, and maybe for me there's a quarterback in Team A and a quarterback in Team B, I want them to go against each other in every drill. In every drill. Now, if you have the personnel to do this, have someone there seeing who wins the drill and mark it. So if you've got an equipment manager, or you've got a student assistant, or you've got other coaches, have someone standing at the start or the finish line. All right, hey, Billy won, and that person marks off on a sheet, Billy won. All right, and by the end of the workout, you're going to know who won and who lost. It's not subjective. All right, it is cold hard facts. Who was the winner? Who was the loser? Okay, then have those teams play against each other, and who won more than they lost. And you have a winner and a loser. So now I can evaluate who's the leader, who are the seniors on Team A. They've lost 3 straight workouts, and they've got good players. Well, then the leadership isn't very good. So what are you going to do? You got to pull the seniors in and say, hey, you got to do a better job of leading. Your guys aren't finding a way to win. And you're doing that. You don't want to have to discover that in the 4th quarter against your crosstown rival. You want to discover that in the off season. You want to put your guys in positions to lead and give them opportunities to lead or maybe to fail and figure out what worked and what didn't. And then I think a great thing is to have some sort of event at the end that's kind of a wrap it up deal, some sort of team competition where you can have fun. You can have, every 10 yards is a pie, and there's a pie eating contest. Or or you can keep it serious and there's a relay race of some sort. They got to carry 2 45-pound weights up and back. And again, you'll be amazed at the guy that maybe isn't quite as tough as you want him to be, that maybe you shouldn't try and count on at the end of a workout. At one of those finishers, all right, some sort of team event, at the end, you'll get a chance to see who you can count on. Who on 4th and 3 with a minute to go in the game can you count on to make the play? And as a coach, that's very, very valuable. Okay? And then rewards and penalties. We used to do whoever finished dead last that week had to clean the locker room, and it had to be spotless. Whoever won that week got a pizza party at the end of the week, or Chipotle, or whatever it might be. But have some rewards for the winners, but some punishments for the losers. And I think, again, you're trying to get young men to compete as much as you can. All right? The last thing, and I think that this is very important, and it kind of goes into everything that we've talked about, is quite simply the use of lines in your drills. All right? And if be as detailed as you can, use them as much as possible. So in other words, to start a drill out on a cone in the middle of the field with no other line, it's almost impossible to tell, is he behind the cone? Is he using as much of the cone as he can? Where is he in relationship to the cone? Instead, have the drill start on a line and finish on a line. Start on the line. Little things to think about. Are we giving the player the line so they can put their hand on the line? Or is it behind the line? Those are little things. But when they're tired, when you're at the end of the workout and you look down the line and you've got the one guy that you're not sure if you can count on, and his hand is in front of the line or his hand is way behind the line, he's not paying attention to the details that you want him to pay attention to throughout the course of a game. Are you gonna, is it going to be a hand down situation? Is it going to be, hey, you put your toe up to the line or your hand is behind the line? I think that that's very important because especially if it's a competitive drill, you want it to be equal. So one guy's got his hand down, one guy doesn't. It may positively help the guy who doesn't have his hand down. So be detailed, and as I'll go through, enforce those details. Touching the line. Are they touching with their hand or are they touching with their foot? Again, it may seem very trivial, but if they're touching with their hand, then they all need to touch with their hand. If they're touching with their foot, then they all need to touch with their foot. Mix it up. Hey, today, touch with your foot. And see how many guys touch with their hand. Then you know they're not paying attention to you. That they're not listening when you're talking to them. So what makes you think they're going to listen to you when you're the corner and you say, hey, we're going to corner blitz right here, and he doesn't do it? Well, hopefully you're taking care of that in the off season. Finishing point. As I said, if you make your drills competitive, then there's got to be a finish line where you can tell who won. So a line is a great way to do that. If you just put one cone out there, that doesn't help you. If you're in a situation where you don't have a line, at least put 2 cones out there. So then you can at least imagine a line going between the cones. But if you just put 1 cone out there, that's not a good relationship for you. And then also make sure that there's room to finish, all right? Whether there's other drills, whether there's obstacles in the way. You may be working out in the stadium and you may be in the end zone and there's not a whole lot of room to finish through a drill. So make sure you may be harping, hey, finish, you gotta finish, you gotta finish. And there's no room to finish. And so you're setting your guys up. Number one, they're gonna start not to trust you because you're yelling at them that you want them to finish something, but you're not putting them in a position to finish. There's a lot of tracks that go around a lot of football fields. And if you have them running through the sideline and you may have a track, maybe the track team's running around it. Well, that's not very safe. But you want the guys to finish, but they don't want to slip and fall on the track. Well, then they're probably not going to finish. Okay? And then enforce those details and be consistent. All right? I think if you're the head coach, I think you've got to do a great job of educating everybody what are the penalties going to be if someone doesn't run through the line or touch the line or touches it with his hand and you said foot. Does he repeat the drill? Well, if you're going to do that, the negatives to that are now your competition might get screwed up. So if he's redoing the drill, does that mean everybody's waiting around? Or does it mean he loses that competitive rep? So, hey, he won, he got through the finish line first, but he touched the line with his foot and you wanted him to touch with his hand. Well, then he loses. All right? And if that shows up enough, then you're going to say, well, apparently we can't count on him, not because he's not athletic, but because he's not able to do the little things you want him to do. So what are you going to use as an enforcement when they don't do the job right? And as I said, be disciplined when you're tired, find out who you can count on, and then what are the consequences if they don't do it right. And I think those are all little things that you can think about just simply on a football field with lines. I've seen people do drills in the middle of a football field, and now with so many people having artificial surfaces, they've got a big logo in the middle of the field. Well, most people, the line doesn't go through the logo. So you set up a drill where you want the start or the finish to be, hey, there's a line, but there isn't a line because there's a logo in the middle of your field. So those are all things that you need to consider when you're formulating a drill in the off season and utilizing lines as opposed to something completely arbitrary or just one cone. But that kind of concludes my talk today. That's my name, email address, and cell phone number. If you have any questions, anything that you would like to communicate with me, please don't hesitate to send me an email or give me a call. I'd be more than happy to help you out, and hopefully you got something out of this today and winning some better and formulating some drills that'll help you win some football games in the fall. Thanks so much.